What is this? Whoa, this video was intense the second we turned it on. What happened here? Hold on a second. Let me turn this sussy boy up. Can sex workers and pastors find middle ground? Bro, come on. What are you talking about? Of course, the middle ground for them is young boys. Duh. What do you think? All right, let's see what we got here.
Your penis has not been socialized, and it doesn't know how to act.
Okay. Wasn't Jesus's best friend a prostitute? Am I wrong about that? So what was her name? I don't remember.
Hand light, can I have my sex workers? My right hand light, my religious leaders.
Well, I figured that Asian man was a sex worker. Like, you know.
I will say a statement.
Shit.
If it is true for you, walk forward. If it's not true, do not step forward. Stay where you
Mary.
are.
Shit.
Sex work can have positive effects.
I'm sure it can, bro. Like, you know, you just you draining the lizard. You know, for the consumer. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of stress release. That's true. That's can. But it's also, I think, very mentally stressful for people who engage in the work. And we've talked about how the unrealistic standards that this stuff can set can kind of mess up the youth if they watch it. So it was Mary Magdalene. I thought that's what her name was.
Yeah, does sex work can have a positive effect? Are you serious? Like in a society.
All right, relax, fatherless. You know what I'm saying? Take a chill pill.
Where we're not having conversations about sex, like of course people are leaning on someone that can guide them. Yeah. And like that means porn. That means sex workers. So many customers come into the club and they're just like,
they just want to talk sometimes.
Yeah,
I remember that about stripping. Yeah. They want to talk about
Like
sex with someone and connect with someone and talk about their sex
and
life
be
maybe.
like,
You know, they sound like they're a little bit like a little lame, you know what I'm saying?
be like open about it and like explore maybe like the things that they can't explore with you know someone else.
A lot of people do look up to
Like
us
what,
and
just sex because nobody wants to fuck them? Like
lean on us for assurance or some kind of something to hold on to because maybe they are that lonely in life that they don't have interactions with people.
Bro, like honestly though, if I was a sex worker and I probably hated my job, I would be like, yeah, man, some of these people really need me. I'd want to feel important, you know what I mean? I'm sorry.
I literally have a fan that emails me every single holiday and I was like, oh my God, this guy's actually someone that's a little bit like emotionally or physically underdeveloped. That's amazing that my sex work gives him.
That's interesting. You know, that's actually a very interesting question of like, should we allow like sex workers to engage with people with disabilities? Because like my wife works with a lot of people with disabilities and they're not like exactly banging, you know, slamming hams all the time. You know what I mean? They're not, you know, and it can get very complicated because it's very interesting. Not everybody who like people, not adults with disabilities, not all of them are deemed by the state to be consenting. Like some of them don't understand consent and they can't have sex, but they still engage in relationships with other people that with disabilities that can consent, and it creates a weird dynamic because they can't sleep with anybody else. And it gets very interesting because the one of the ways that you get deemed non-consenting is they ask you a series of questions along the lines of like, oh, let's say fucking Michael, random name, takes you out to eat. Do you have to have sex with him? And sometimes they'll be like, yeah, I have to. Like they took me out to eat. So some people are deemed non-consenting. Though they don't really reevaluate consent often enough, in my opinion. You know, that's a different story for a different day. That's a whole conversation that I would have to have with my wife, and then of course, you know, whatever. So it's interesting because like, why not? Because some of them can be very bottled up, if you know what I'm saying, and they can't really get it out. And you know what I mean? If someone's willing to sleep with them for some money, I mean, maybe it's a positive thing because that's stress for somebody that doesn't have a developmental disability. You know, like you get stressed when you got a lot of buildup. Imagine somebody else, like they're people too. They get fucking charged up and they're like, oh, you know, they gotta come. You know, sometimes you just gotta come. And they have a hard time doing it, and they have a hard time finding, you know, people to mate with. So it might actually not be a bad thing. It's an interesting conversation to have. You know what I'm saying?
Him something to look forward to. And that's what's sad is people don't think of people like that are on the skirts of society. They also love sex and they want that interaction as well.
Even with like within marriages, like you need to learn different techniques. You need to learn like how to role play. You need to like, that's why marriages fail, because you are not happy. You're not having sex. Like
And
sex
not
is a
having that
great.
Sometimes.
conversation.
Sure. I don't know. I mean, you could find a sex therapist. You don't need a sex worker to help you in bed. You know what I mean? You could find a sex therapist. It's like, oh, have you tried going past? You don't need a fucking OnlyFans entrepreneur to help you. You know, I don't think the introduction of a sex worker into a marriage is actually ever a positive thing. Sex therapist for sure, but like I feel like a little bit of an overstatement there.
In my own personal experience with porn, it just tweaks my chemistry, man. Like to
feel
where
that,
I'll be
bro.
walking down the street and see someone be like, "Why isn't that girl taking her shirt off?" Like that's supposed to be what happens.
Oh,
now,
that's not what
because
I meant. I meant more of like, oh man, I'm so desensitized. I got to look at some girls getting peed on or something. You know what I'm saying? Like it gets really. That's a little different from what you're saying though. You just think that you're just looking at girls. You're horny probably. You probably need to jerk off.
Seeing sex education.
Yeah.
Right there.
Well,
like,
I don't think so. For me,
I think masturbating is illegal in the church or something. You know what I mean?
it's that my mind gets used to a simplicity of it all. And for me, sex is available. I'm married. I'm married to a great woman that's willing to party. And so like, it's not for
party,
and
drugs,
and she
and
party with my body.
like,
And so for me, it's not, oh, I got to figure out how to get this. Like it's there. And that's the only place it's ever been for me. I don't know, maybe it's like, drinking is totally fine for some people, not an alcoholic. Maybe I'm the alcoholic with porn that just, it tweaks my mind.
Bro, what kind of experience do you have with this shit? What the fuck are you saying?
In a negative way that it makes me go, man, I don't want to be thinking about these people I'm encountering like that. I just want to be able to look at them as humans and instead of like thinking about people and how they can provide for me. So
I feel
That's weird. I've never had the issue of walking around in public and looking at a girl and going, oh, what if I could pay to fuck her? Like I've never had that problem before. This is an insane perspective. This guy must have like a serious problem.
I feel like that the extreme frustration is the demonization of porn without actually offering an actual alternative that kids or adults of any kind can look towards
Hentai.
for real sexual education. You can sit here and talk all kinds of mess about porn and say that it's bad and it's damaging, but what is actually...
Well, I do think that it is for young kids to watch. I think it actually does fuck them up. Like I said, I think it creates like really bizarre expectations of consent and whatnot. So
enriching. There's nothing.
Any sexual behavior is okay with consent.
yeah, I think so for the most part, unless you're like cutting someone's head off. But I think that we're probably remaining within a reasonable realm. So yeah, whatever. Everything, as long as it's consensual.
And let's go ahead and like get out of the way. Like we're
Right.
not talking about children.
No.
We're not talking about people that cannot have consent.
Well, yeah,
Or
they can't
animals because
consent.
they cannot give consent.
I have some
Totally.
people that want to do something.
Hey, my wife says I'm an animal. In bed, if you know what I'm saying, dude. I can consent.
Nastiest, freakiest things, and I'm not into it. But being a sex worker, like I love being able to do that for them. You know, like,
Right.
I like to be put in those situations where I'm now like
Poop
the one
on
that
me,
might
daddy.
be uncomfortable and have to figure out why I'm feeling this way and how I can come out doing a good job. I will say
this.
I'm interested to see you sitting up here.
Yeah.
Why am I up here?
Why are you up here?
I want to walk.
He's just trying to get with one of these sex workers. He's like, you know what? This is my chance. Do you guys do scat? You know what I mean? Like that's what's going on in his head.
Because I've counseled couples that are like married for a long time, and sex is a problem, like a huge problem. I do this like inventory sheet, like oral sex, yes, yes, no, no, right? And whenever we got to the butt play, like the guy is like, fuck, no.
Yes.
And it's like, why? Because it's
Yeah.
like, I'm not, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I actually know a lot of men that
that's
like it.
homophobia
Yeah,
right there.
yeah.
That's
I mean, guys can't even take their own partner sometimes, just being like, I want to, yes, mess with your junk. Hello.
My standard of sex, I feel like I've surrendered to God, to my understanding of God and the scriptures
very
as
cool,
best
bro.
as I understand them. And so for me, if there was consensual, like you said, if there's 12 people, like that's not okay for the standard of life that I have like said, I'm gonna live by this standard of holiness and righteousness. That's not a judgment on anyone else. That's me saying
But a little bit
that
is,
sex,
but
even if
okay.
it was consensual, I don't think would be okay. If somebody came to my church and said, hey, we wanna start swinging, I would say that is
If someone came to my church and said, hey, I like other men, you'd be like, nope, sin. You're going to go to hell. You know what I'm saying? It's not okay.
destroy marriages, man, and that's a high ethic in my church.
Do you have any example of that, destroying marriages?
I actually have
Is it-
counseled people through
is it
divorce from
because-
affairs.
Is it because of their like religious shame? like that they're holding on to, maybe?
You'd have to ask them specifically. I don't remember it being shame, but adultery, like.
But adultery and affairs is lying.
Yeah, that's
bad.
That's non-consensual.
And that's
I'm okay, but I'm so confused with what's happening. Like what?
cheating. Yeah, because the other person
cheating's
that's being lied
bad.
to is not consenting to the third party being a part of that relationship.
That's cool. The standard that I come at it from, and you guys can say that you disagree with the standard, but when the standard is that I believe God says this sex is for this couple, this married couple, then when we step outside of that, we can go, well, what about this? What about this?
So do people that aren't married not deserve sex?
You know what?
Well, according to the Bible, it's a gift from God, so no.
That question.
But again, marriage in the Bible is about
Sex is only for procreation, okay? That's it. The only reason that you ever do it is to try to have babies, okay? So if you want to have a lot of it, you have to find somebody who struggles with fertility. You know what I'm saying? That's the cheat code. That's the cheat code for segs. You know what I'm saying? You know, you got to find you a PCOS queen.
Quite literally, white people are desperate to get married and rush into marriages.
White people? What?
Question.
But again, marriage in the Bible is about
literally,
ownership,
quite
so,
literally,
like-
white people are desperate
I
to
thought she said white people are desperate. I was like, what the fuck happened here? What did I miss?
get married and rush into marriages
It's
and
a
get into
real
bad
thing.
marriages because they feel that sex is only sanctified through
Russian marriages?
to get married and rush into marriage.
What's with all the white hatred? I'm just kidding.
It's
And
a
get
real
into bad
thing.
marriages because they feel that sex is only sanctified through marriage or whatever, okayed, and they are married to whoever and they have whatever kind of sex, or they get cheated on.
That's a really sad scenario. Like I'm not for
Not
anything you
everybody,
just
but
said.
certain
Yeah.
people, you know.
Okay.
My hopes is that we finally start living as a nation and don't put Christian values above human values.
Yeah. Are we
We're
like
kind of doing that now, but okay.
honestly, as a human,
We're
as
still
a
holding on to
society, not
Christianity.
philosophically, like it doesn't have to be a new religion, but just philosophically shift our mentality forward from this old book?
There's a lot of assumptions
Okay.
happening right now. I resonate so much with this idea of why are we going off of this book? Heck yeah, I'm right there with you. Sometimes I read stuff and I'm like, holy moly, I need to exegete that passage. I need to understand what that means because if I'm going to teach on this, I better know what the heck I'm talking about. If they don't understand the culture at the time of the audience that was being spoken to or written to, then it can be taken out of context. And so there's a lot of study that goes
stop.
into it. But with that,
Okay.
the statement.
It's interesting where like it's not like the religious texts are about context, which context is of course key. But there'll be times where like, yeah, women aren't people, and they'll be like, well, contextually, it's like, no, contextually, that's not a good thing to say. It's like, yeah, women are male property. It's like, how do you put that into context in like a positive light? You really can't. At that point, it becomes gaslighting. You know what I'm saying?
Statements that you're making just in the past couple minutes are really blanket statements.
Like a lot of times, like the Bible it allows some forms of slavery, and they'll be like, yeah, but it's not the worst kind. And it's like, well, okay, like indentured servitude, that's bad. That's bad. That's a bad thing. It's like, it's not the worst though. It's like, that's not good in any context.
Let's just throw out this entire thing because it's devaluing my work
to be part of a
or
cult?
it's coming against. And though I would agree, if you look at it at face value, 100%.
Romantic connections
Look at it, butt value.
make sex better.
Yeah, I think so. Of course.
Personally,
I think that generally speaking, like, yes, 100%. Like, of course, emotional connection will make sex better. Like, growing and loving your partner will make. I'm sure there's people who disagree, but just generally, the quality of sex is always going to be better with somebody that you're emotionally connected with. I'm not a big fan of like hookup culture. Like, I think it's weird. And I think that's what like that's the problem with the general advocation of like some sex workers is like, no, sex can be fine if you've never met. It's like, that's weird. It takes like you have to break a big barrier for that. And I still think that like emotional connection is like the best part. I mean, maybe it's just personal, but I feel like that's a pretty widespread thought, you know?
Some of the best sex I had is like, I don't know who this is.
That's probably because you've never truly loved anybody, and that's sad for you.
I'm so surprised by you two. Romantic connection makes sex better.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that feels very
But universal.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I love having a discussion on sex, about sex with people that maybe have had, not even maybe, tons more sex than me, because I've only ever had sex with one person. Like, that's it. And we
Lame. Somebody said, do you think it's odd for couples to talk about their sex lives to their parents? I think their parents, yes. Friends, no. Coworkers, no. I think if you could talk to whoever as long as you have like that's called venting. I'm not a big fan of people not being able to vent. Like, yeah, you talk to like your close people about your sex life. Just make sure that they understand that that's not something they can just go around and telling everybody. It's not gossip. It's supposed to be for, you know, some kind of venting and to build. Well,
We've gotten like good at each other, but that's it.
well, this guy just
Wesley, hang in there, bud. Hang in there,
I don't
man.
understand what's being said right now.
Come on.
I think it's beautiful.
And so there has been in my marriage transactional sex, just like, hey man, I need to have some love right now.
I gotta come.
And then there's been like, we go away for the weekend and there's notes and there's gifts and it's better in that context for me.
Okay,
So
that's interesting.
I'm my wife's first, but I've had a lot of partners, and I don't know, it just hasn't been as satisfying compared to having it in the context of my marriage. Sex is better because it's in the context of like this person that won't leave me. Like she's just loyal, she's committed, and we get to do this thing called sex.
First thing that came to my mind, and now it makes sense why you don't want to watch porn, because you've only had sex with the one person. So like
These two are just gonna, like, honestly, I've had a lot of sex. I just want you guys to know, like, I've had a lot of sex. I've had like 20 partners. Like I've experienced the best sex is with somebody that you like love. I feel like that's pretty widespread amongst a lot of people. Like I've had good casual sex before, but it doesn't top like the emotional connection. So like I just feel like people who swear but like no, it's better when you like, how could you say like no, it's better without an emotional connection? I just feel like you're probably kind of sad, man. I'm sorry, and maybe that's too anecdotal, but I feel like it's just not the same. It's sad. Like, yeah, it's pretty cool from a conquest perspective for me, like especially as a man. You know, I'm sure women feel the same way sometimes too. Like to find like a girl and be like, yeah, I bagged that shit. That's just fun, a unique feeling. And I understand maybe you get bored, you have to do things to spice it up. But I've never had better sex than with like a partner before, especially my current one.
Of course you don't want to watch it because the penis has a mind of its own.
I want to
No
watch
wonder
porn.
you watch porn and then you look at people and you can't not see.
And look at how like aggressive and angry they are. Like to me, this is like when you're this charged up, man, you're just trying to cope.
Your penis has not been socialized like a dog or a child.
I will say, I think it's absolutely
And it doesn't know how to
remarkable
act.
that you have done that, because that is a whole nother level of commitment that I'm never willing to go down, you know? I have had sex with partners where I've like, have literally looked into their eyes and have like felt like that thing that is talked about, like that connection, that bonding of like the souls. I've cried even while, you know, having sex. But to say that it has to be romantic for it to be better, I think is being overzealous.
It's not. I don't think that was the question, though. Was it? Maybe I misconstrued the question. Fucking give me the question already. Fuck.
I had it.
Romantic connection.
Romantic connections. No, the question wasn't, is romantic sex better? The question was, do romantic connections make sex better? It's not the same thing. I don't always have romantic intercourse with my wife, but just the fundamental romantic connection makes everything more comfortable and expressing yourself more comfortable. And especially if you're into kinks, like romantic connections will make it better, because you need to be very connected to your partner to do some stuff that might be considered extreme in a normal, again, without being in a relationship. So like they just didn't listen to the question. They literally just don't understand the actual question. That was the problem there. So they didn't give a genuine answer, I'm assuming.
Or a child.
Be okay with.
Okay, hold on.
I would prohibit my child from doing sex work.
Well, I would prohibit literal children, yes. If it came to my daughter or son doing it, if they were of age, I would be vocal about how I don't like it. But to word prohibit, like I wouldn't like prohibit them, but I would warn them that it's a very emotionally stressful field and that they don't need to get into it, because if they really needed help, I could help them financially. At least I'd hope I'd be in a scenario where I could, because I think a lot of people go to this type of field because they don't have any other. I think the overwhelming majority of people who do some form of sex work, like OnlyFans, do so because they need money rather than because it's something that they want to do. And I do think that there's a problem with like almost grooming kids into doing fucking sex work on like TikTok and shit. They're like, yeah, it's great when you hit 18. Like imagine that being your goal. You're 17. Like I can't wait to hit 18 so I could show my body off for money. It's like, especially with the expectations, because some people think that's like, oh, I just gotta show my bra and panties. Like if you want to make the money, you have to spread yourself open. You got to show them the whole fucking the whole roast beef. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. Is this paused?
As an adult child?
As an adult, yes.
Sorry, can you use another word besides prohibit?
I would not be okay with my child doing sex work.
That's a different question. I would not be okay with my child doing sex work. The word prohibit and not okay those are two vastly different questions. It sounds like they wouldn't prohibit, but they would be very much against it. So this is, now we have a new question. Would I be against my child doing so? 100% against it. Yes, but I would still support them as people.
Oh, guys.
Yeah, man. If you guys were my kids, I would consider this a fail, like an epic L. You know what I'm saying?
Same thing yours was. Prohibit. What's that mean? Disown? No, I wouldn't disown. Not love them? Absolutely not. All I would do is just say it's not where I would want you to go. That's not what I want you to do.
Exactly, I agree 100%.
It'd be hard for me because of my
personally it'd be soft for me because I wouldn't want to look at my kids' porn, but you do you, brother.
Sex as being a sacred thing in my own personal world, not wanting it to be a show for others.
When two people have sex, there's a soul tie that is created. Our bodies are, emotional, spiritual, physical, and so is sex. I give people this example. It's like if you take two pieces of wood and you glue them together, and then you try to pull them apart. Will they come apart? Yeah, if you're strong enough, they'll come apart. But there's still going to be glue or pieces of wood on both sides, and that's what I would explain or kind of define as a soul tie. There's always a piece of that person.
That sounds, that sounds actually gay. Putting two pieces of wood, rubbing them together. I'll tell you one thing, guys. Make sure you wear a condom all the time. Not even to prevent STDs and pregnancy, which you should wear it, but also to prevent like your hormones. And when you put your man milk in a girl, there's like a hormonal fucking release, bro, that just makes you like really connect. So be careful of who you dump your spunk into. You know what I'm saying?
With them, and that is outside of religion. That is just a belief that I see in humanity. To me,
source. Trust me, bro.
My heart would be sad for my child. I would be burdened. My heart would be burdened for them.
I agree with that.
I think the reason why there is so much fear with someone going into the sex industry
is because it can become very abusive very quickly. It can become very abusive very quickly. That is a biggest fear. Even OnlyFans, I think, can become very mentally stressing. But let's not pretend that it's not. We watched a bunch of porn stars talk about it, and they were all very they were like, oh yeah, this kind of sucks. Their relationships were ruined with other people. It was horrible, and just the mental stress of prepping for this stuff is insane. Let's not try to pretend that this is great. This sounds like a self-cope. This is I have to convince people that it's amazing, or else I can't function in my life.
Are they going to get mixed in with the wrong crowd? Is there going to be drugs? It's a lot of fear-based. And my parents tell me all the time that I'm changing people's views in that small town in Texas because now they can see someone who does sex work and is a porn star and is a family man and is loving and is spiritual. And yeah.
Wow. I mean, I guess it's different for men. It's probably easier for male porn stars to have families than female porn stars. Because you can disconnect yourself more. I don't know.
So it makes sense to me why you wouldn't want that. And I would love some dental too, because sex work is real.
And men would probably be less open to dating women in porn than the reverse.
Work, damn it, and I need to be compensated fairly. Do you think you want to go down on everybody listening? That is a job, baby.
I know, right.
That is a job.
Gotta keep it looking nice.
So obviously we come from a context where we think of that dark, pimps just beating up their hoes and things like that, just the drugs, the sex, right?
I wasn't even talking about the drugs, bro. It's just the profound amount of mental stress.
To the best of your knowledge, what percent of the sex industry is that?
I think we have to then ask the same question. What percentage of your industry is not truly living their truth in their life? And are they sleeping with women or boys? Let's take the Catholic Church, for example. Let's really have this conversation. I mean, of course there's people that are bad in any industry, in any position. And I wouldn't know that.
But my thing is, I'm sure there are people that are bad in the sex industry. We're not talking about that. We're talking about the industry in and of itself fundamentally being stressful for people, which it is.
That percentage, because I don't associate with those kind of people, regardless of where I'm at. Even if I'm out at a bar having drinks, I'm not over there doing kiki and staying up all night getting fucked and doing meth. Now there's some porn stars that might be doing that, but that's not for me.
I have a sexually satisfying life.
I mean, you have to walk forward. You can't not walk forward. If you don't walk forward there, you're admitting that you have no credibility and to answer any of these questions. So you gotta walk forward. You know what I mean?
Actually,
let's see who walks forward quickly.
Satisfying life.
All right. So right off the bat, she stalls. She stalls. Okay, that's important. Takes her a minute to move forward. Okay, so we've identified she doesn's have a sexually satisfying. Let's rewatch these two.
Satisfying life.
All right, these two are fine. Those two are fine. Now let's watch the right side.
I have a sexually satisfying life.
All right, she stalls as well. He's the first to move. Surprises the fuck out of me. So, you know,
have a sexually satisfying life.
yeah, so these two women move the slowest. So there's one of two options. Either one, neither of them are truly sexually satisfied, or two, they're just women and their brains work slower. Like those are just, those are two equally credible options for it to happen, okay? So
Have a sexually satisfying life.
Am I having the best 100% sex that I want? No, because threesomes aren't happening, orgies aren't happening. Me getting to hook up with the people that I'm fantasizing about at any given moment isn't happening. My ideal sex life is this all ends in an orgy. That's my ideal sex life.
I feel like you could probably find that pretty easily, especially as a woman.
Okay, that's reality. So am I living my best 100% sex life? No, because I'm truly held back like 70% of the time, and I only get to have as much as is consensual.
Porn has released me from a lot of my insecurities. It has opened my eyes. It has finally made a good-looking white man marginalized to see a different point of view. I used to be terrified to speak up and have a voice and to say what it is that
Yeah, I think she's exaggerating a little bit too. Seems a little intense.
I want or need, and now I am equipped with knowing how to do it, knowing how to approach it, and yeah, my life is completely happy, and I'm having a lot of sex. Sometimes, mostly with myself. Just a little handy.
Okay, that's a little weird. Like it's weird that like most, I don't know, that's just like a weird thing to say. It's like, oh, I'm doing really well, I'm having a lot of sex, mostly with myself. What? This sounds like you're jerking off most of the time. What the fuck? I'm just very confused. I'm getting the truth is starting to seep through these answers.
I step forward because I feel like, once again, I got it, just me and my wife, but she brings
my
the
wife
heat,
and I, bro.
we have
love that.
and we have
I love
fun.
that you were just like, don't even apologize for it. Just be like,
Yeah, it probably makes it easier because you have nothing to compare it to. So like that could be a good and a bad thing. But like if you don't know, and let's say your wife's terrible in bed, but you don't know. So who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying? Or maybe she's fucking incredible. We don't know. I'll have to, I'll have to hang out with her. But
she's it.
Yeah.
That's why
She's down and
Hell
what do you want
yeah.
to
Oh
do?
my
Where we
God.
at?
he seems pretty horny for her though.
That's all you need is a down-ass woman. That's all it takes, bro. I see why you're so loyal.
I can tell you this because we're very modest people. When she sees this, she'll be like, there's half of her that will be like,
yeah.
and then there's another half she'll be like, I do.
Yeah, you clean acknowledgement,
So that's why I stepped over here.
That's it.
That was wonderful, guys.
This is great.
You think that they just do mostly missionary? By the way, though, I'm not even criticizing that because, like, whether you want to hear it or not, missionary is like the best position. It really is. It's simple, but it is the best position. It's the most comfortable for both parties. You can get a really good angle. If you want to be a little crazy, sometimes you can move it into the breeding press. For those of you who know what that is, if you don't know, you don't need to know. But like, I feel like you don't have to get super complicated to be satisfying. That doesn't mean you can't do other. I do other positions. I'm just saying that it's underrated. It's not a hot take. I'm just saying.
So sweaty.
All right, I was sweaty. Great video. Always gotta love these types of videos.